Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Miles Morales Spider-Man issue number 26. If you can't take a bad review, you're probably not going to like this. Anyway, um, let's talk about who made this comic book, and then I'll talk about how I was right. And I hate being right because when I'm right, it's usually something that others will say is cynical. Me, I just look at it as connecting the dots and seeing the history, the past of yeah, let's talk about this. Saladin Ahmed is the writer, Carmen Carnero on art, David Curiel on color art, letters by VC's Corey Petit, Torrin Clark on covers, Federico Vincentini and Alex Sinclair doing the variant cover. Let's go on from there. So there's these three clones, and Spider-Man comes by to help. And if there was a cool part of this comic book, it would be that Spider-Man does show up to help right when one of the leader of the clones says, I have brothers. Who do you have? He's like, oh, he's got a brother too. I like that. That was much appreciated. They still get their butt kicked, but you gotta have the exact clones that aren't exact clones that are somehow more powerful because sure. Maybe this is how some Peter Parker fans feel about a much more powerful Miles Morales showing up. I don't know. I don't have one of those. I'm not one of those people with that problem. I enjoy Miles Morales, but I don't enjoy this story. I've talked about how you shouldn't be trying to redo stories from the past, especially stories that have failed in the past, but even the stories that are good in the past. You don't try and redo those because, you're not going to be able to. They were exactly what they were meant to be then, and you're taking someone's original idea and you're turning around and saying, well, technically they belong to Marvel and I work for Marvel, so I'm just going to do such and such and such. And no, I would refuse to do something like that. This is one of the reasons why I'm positive that a Marvel Comics or DC Comics would never hire me. I want you to redo the story that somebody did years ago. No. No, the story is there. The story is what it is, and deal with it. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Saying no to your bosses, usually not something that bosses appreciate. But in the long run, your pride and the idea of doing what you believe is right, always worth it in the end. Very Steve Ditko of me, right? Oh my God, in a Spider-Man comic book? Anyway, stick to your guns. In this particular case, I don't know if Saladin Ahmed wanted to do this. I don't know. But I do know that this was a mistake. And as much as I enjoyed it before, this issue just showed that you really don't have anything. Anything. I at this point, I don't even care how it ends. Not entirely true. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to stick the ending. But you've just got these clones that don't want to talk. Well, they do want to talk, though. These clones show up and only the one can really have a cut besides Glug. You know what I'm saying? Glug. Which is cool. I like the idea of that. That's cool, but not as a clone. But the one, Salim, and of course, leave to Saladin Ahmed, he's got to add some Arabic into there. I'm good with that. Make no mistake, don't, you know what? I know that sounded like it was a bad way of expressing it. No, I actually appreciate that he does that. More people should try and add some different languages into the comic books. Comic books were always meant to educate people. My initial really good education came from comic books back in the 60s, 70s, and especially the 80s. You know what I'm saying? Learning a bunch of new words and things like that. I forget which word it was, but Jim Shooter actually shot down his teacher one time and said that such and such is a word. And the teacher saying, no, it's not. And she made him look it up in the dictionary and he found it and then shows her. And it's like, where did you hear this word? He says, I got it from a comic book. Yeah. Yeah. Like that. People actually used to be really talented when they were hired to do comic books, I'm not saying that none of them are today, but it seems like most of them aren't. Saladin has the ability to be one of those people who are. He could, and I hope that he does. I've seen a couple things here and there. And just the idea of introducing words from a different language other than, the curse words. Boom, I'm done. I'm good with it. But when you can't put together a good story, especially when it's the Clone Saga stories, the Clone War, whatever the hell this is, the Phoenix Saga was a great saga. Then there's a saga that's just like, oh my God, with the drums and the saga, like this is the exact opposite. The polar opposite sagas would have to be the Phoenix Saga and the freaking Clone Saga, because this is This is horrible. That was horrible. All of the reprints or the redos of them that were horrible. They're all just, they suck. They suck. And I get it. We got Ben Reilly from it. That's really great. Shoot. Sometimes you'll find a truffle in a pile of dung. You know what I'm saying? That's great. Coffee grinds. The best coffee grinds come from poop. You know what I'm saying? That the dung beetle rolls up. I get it. I get it. But it's still poop. It's still poop. You know, and if all you get is that perfect grind that comes from the poo after it's been washed off and whatnot, then you're okay with stuff like the Clone Saga. All right. But the rest of us who actually put our hands in it and we're just like, ew, what is this that I'm reading? I don't want to touch this anymore. Yeah, that's us. And poop sucks. Anyway, this was absolutely terrible. Salim, the clone, doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want answers. Even when Miles goes, please, but he puts his hands on, and all of a sudden this is just like the ruthless Dora Milaje, who, when, in the Falcon and Winter Soldier Disney streaming series, they freak out like, you put your hands on me, oh, with the spear. You're saying, like, dude, what the hell are you doing at this point? So bullying tactics, that's the way, right? Okay, so if I grab a crew and we come and we're able to kick the Dora Milaje's asses, we could just take their spears, we could take their costumes, right? We could smack them up. Hell, let's take one of their arms. You know what I'm saying? Let's just jack them up, right? Like, There's some things that people just really don't get. In this particular case, Salim wants to have a long, lengthy conversation about, my name is Salim. It is Arabic for perfect, or I forget what the word is. I don't think I've ever actually used that word when I used to actually speak Arabic regularly in the Middle East, specifically Saudi. But whatever, anyway. So I'm not overly familiar with that word. I never said I was fluent in the frickin' language. Anyway, so, but marhaba. But this clone wants to have this big conversation about, ooh, and this means this, and this means this, and oh, let's pull out the dictionary, and, you know, the Arabic to English dictionary, and vice versa, and ooh, look at this one. But then when it's like, wait, just, why are you imitating me? What are you doing? What's your purpose? Help me understand. No, I'm not going to talk to you. But you just did. You want to talk to me about frivolous stuff. What was that one movie? Finding Forrester. Really good movie. Sean Connery was in it. The other kid, the kid that was in it, I hope that he went on to do good things. I would love for somebody to be like, are you kidding me? That kid was this and this and this and this and this. And I'd love to be able to be like, really? That's awesome. Because he's a really talented kid. But it was obviously freaking Sean Connery who stole the show as best supporting actor, like, you know, almost ever. There's the one moment where he says, where the kid asks him some question. He asks him about, you know, oh, what's in the soup? And Sean doesn't answer the question. Sean's character, Forrester. He doesn't answer the question, but then the kid goes and asks something else personal, like, what happened to your wife, or something like that? Or why did you stop writing? Something personal. And he says, you should have stuck with the soup question. He's like, what? He's like, asking me what was in the soup or how I made the soup. That would have actually given you something of benefit. That would have actually been something that you could use in life. But asking me this personal question, what does that benefit you? In any way, shape, or form, what does that benefit you? It's the same question. It's the same answer that I give, or a similar answer that I give, whenever somebody says, oh, you were in the military? Did you ever kill anyone? Bud? Anyway. So, similarly, soup questions. But in this particular case, it's the inverse. It's answers. He's willing to give frivolous answers. I'm sure we're going to find out that he's unstable, that they're all unstable. And I mean mentally, too, because obviously they're physically unstable. Somehow Miles winds up doing something because he's tired, so that's his excuse. And I like the idea that there was an excuse there. Really good way of covering his grounds for Saladin. It's a weird way to do it. It's like, oh, I've got a writing paper that I've got to turn in. So, hey, Genki, while you're finding so-and-so because this clone, he decided to take some time out of my day to make my best friend, to try and make my best friend hate me with a stupid text. Yeah, I'm serious. I died when I saw this. Like, are you freaking kidding me? And then he turns around and it's like, okay, well, you're clearly my enemy. You're trying to start some crap. So how about this? And he's like, you've killed us by doing this, but we're going to torture you and make you suffer until the end. Why? Why? This book. This. You know what this is, right? Well, besides the whole F-hole, which this book kind of is also, it's how much sense this book makes. A big, fat zero. There is nothing in this book that makes sense. Pete even says, hey, contact me when you're going to go. I'm serious. Okay. And he doesn't. So is Peter going to show up and save the day in this? In which case it's not really a Miles Morales book? Or is, because somebody has to save the day, or is he going to save his own day, in which case he was never in any real danger to begin with? You know, all of this stuff we presume comes from the Assessor. And that was just one of the most horrifying storylines imaginable. It was a weird way for him to get out of it, too. I liked it, but it was right on the cusp of being weird, being a bit too much. Right? Dad comes out of retirement and gets Uncle Hobie to come in and help out. Actually, he's not Hobie. He's a different Prowler. Anyway. This is a bit much. There's a lot of things that Spider-Man does in here, Miles Morales does, that's stupid, and there's a lot of things that just happen that are stupid. There's really not much of anything that I can appreciate in this book. And you can see a little bit of that in the previous issue because the build-up to this was actually pretty good, right? Like for it to be a Clone Saga story, and I know that we're going into his Clone Saga story, and we're just doing the preamble to the Clone Saga story, and I'm just like, I don't want another Clone Saga story. Stop! Do something original. Not an original take on somebody else's stuff, because that's not original just because the word original is in it. That's like saying military intelligence. It's the military, but it's not intelligence. Oxymorons. So, even a good prelude to a dung pile. I know that I had bad feelings going into this. I know that I kept on thinking from the beginning, this is not going to be good. And I know that a lot of people are going to suggest that this is self-fulfilling prophecy, right? But no. I was enjoying this going into it. I was hopeful going into this because of how good the prelude to this was, the introduction to this was, the lead-in to this was. But now that we're actually in it, it's obvious. You can't do a good Clone Saga story. And by me saying this, one of you future Marvel Comics writers are going to say, oh yeah? Challenge accepted, Professor. And you will fail also. There's some things you shouldn't try and replicate. One of those is somebody else's original work, good or bad. I appreciate what Nick Spencer is doing in the Amazing Spider-Man story right now because he's trying to fix something that somebody didn't, that most people seem to have not enjoyed, right? With the One More Day stuff. He's not repeating One More Day. And if he were, it would be horrible. Why? No, instead, what he's doing is he's playing off of it. And he's addressing certain things. And it seems he's trying to correct certain things, or at least retcon certain things. Correct sounds like such a rude word, right? Rude to Quesada, rude to Slott, rude to whomever. He's trying to change or retcon some of the things that people didn't like to make it more palatable, to make it better. Some people say, just undo the whole thing. We'll see. I appreciate what he's doing there. This is just, like I said, it's somebody with a very big ego at least in this particular regard. If he's humble in everything else in life, cool. But Saladin Ahmed clearly came into this with a lot of bravado, talking about, I can do better. I can do my own Clone Saga. But you can't. You can't do your own Clone Saga. You can do a take on it, but it's still always going to be somebody else's Clone Saga. And we know the people who are involved in it. You weren't there. I'm very disappointed in this. And this is one of the reasons why I'm happy that I'm not buying physical copies anymore. Because it hurts buying comic books just to be able to donate bad comic books. It is what it is. It is what it is. I go back to the idea that Jim Shooter learned how to write by doing his own research immediately, with DC comics suck, Marvel comics are great, at the time. So what makes these good and these bad? And he'd buy them both and he'd look at them and just be like, well, he was actually getting them for free because he couldn't afford to buy them. He was getting them for free at the hospital. People like me who donated comic books, right? So you figure I'm making the next Jim Shooter. The problem is, good luck, because where are the good comic books, right? If all you're reading is bad comic books and you think, oh, this Clone Saga stuff, this is how you do a good comic book. No. That's how you do a bad comic book, bro. This is not comics in general. But nowadays, that seems to be the feeling. Anyway, I'm really disappointed in this. And it's one of those things where I want to just, hello, McFly, I told you so. This sucks. This genuinely sucks. But it is what it is, and here we are. So, got to know how this ends. And if this doesn't end well, then that ends my run on Miles Morales Spider-Man. It is what it is. It is what it is. And more people just falling off of the comic. And every single time, this almost feels like, I don't know what Saladin Ahmed would think about hearing, oh, somebody doesn't like my book is going to stop reading my book. Good, you should stop reading my book. Blah, 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 blah. It sounds a lot like Rian Johnson, doesn't it? When the majority of people are screaming, I hate what you did with your movie. I hate what you did with the characters who I grew up on and love. I'm invested in these characters, and you screwed over my expectations by doing this stuff. And he just says, oh, well, whatever. You don't like the movie. You don't like the movie. Blah, blah, blah. No, so there's no learning from your mistakes. There's no humility. There's no, okay, cool. You are who you are. And some people are just really some people just lack humility in some areas at the very least. It is what it is. Anytime somebody says, I'm not going to read your comic book, and they give good reasons why, and you say, okay, you failed. You failed as a comic book writer, or whatever it is that you're doing. Whatever you're doing in life. Because I understand there's always going to be critics, but just shoving all the critics into one pile. World ain't a light switch, buddy. It's a dimmer switch. And pretty soon the power is going to go out. When you live in extremes, pretty soon the power goes out, and there's only one way to go from there. As opposed to conserving energy, it's an engineer giving an assessment of a comic book. The assessor. Why couldn't we just stick with the assessor instead of this? Anyway, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. Like the video, watch an ad. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.